Welcome back to the Unstoppable podcast, and today I am joined with Ruby, who is an ex-athlete in the skiing world, and also as well, she's done fashion like I did. We're very, very similar, you'll learn to know this on this podcast, but also as well an amazing NLP practitioner. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We're gonna go in deep. So obviously we did skiing, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Do you want to delve into why? Obviously, you've told me a little bit of why you did it, but why did we stop, and then where did it kind of lead you from the back of that?
So I'll start with why I started. So my brother got scouted by a ski instructor, and me and my brother, we do everything together. So he was like, I'm only going to do ski racing if she does it. So we competed when we were kids, and then unfortunately, I then got diagnosed with like a liver disease.
Oh my
so
God.
It completely like just stopped immediately. So then that was the bit then kind of changed my career of like direction of what I saw in life and stuff, because I think when you get forced to stop something, for example, I know lots of athletes experience injury or loss, but it's quite hard to then go, okay, right, what now? Like when your whole identity is being an athlete. So yeah, essentially, because I had to stop because I was physically too sick and then removed from school, sport, I spent a lot of time, I guess, with myself. And then I realized that health does actually represent a lot more than our physicality. It's also like about our mentality, sort of how we think and feel about ourselves. So because I couldn't train in the gym, you know, like with all athlete sports at competitive level, it's strength conditioning, it's all about discipline, like all of that. Because I couldn't do that because I was physically not able to, I started to learn about strengthening and sort of, I guess, building your mental muscles. And I kind of learned about the power of your mind and how it can affect your body. And because of the type of illness that I had was so rare, there is no cure for it. But the doctors, each time I saw them, they're like, how are you doing so well? Like your disability per se is so invisible. And it was down to the way I was thinking and how I was feeling as a result. And I guess it's kind of, it's about mindset in the same way as an athlete. You're not motivated every day.
No.
You know, it's not motivation that takes you to the gym. It's not motivation that gets you up a ski mountain at 6 a.m. It's discipline. So I think having that disciplined mindset, like you can achieve anything, whether it's physically, emotionally, or mentally. So that's what kind of led me into then looking at doing this work that I do, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and just helping others realize like the power of the brain. Like you live in your head your whole life, so why not make it a lovely place to live?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I fully agree, and I think this is something. Obviously, I got injured at the start of the year, which everyone knows, and I was out running for like 4 months. So I fully understand the power of the mind. And this is something, it's so bizarre, like even this week, with it being like taper week for me, I was making injuries up, like phantom injuries, because it's that mind taking over, and the reality is I'm not injured. I literally went and saw someone yesterday, and he was like, there's nothing. There's literally nothing there. You've got nothing to be worried about. And it genuinely is all in the power of your mind. And like you said, like you can either make it such a hard place for you to live in, to deal with, or you can choose. And it is a choice. I don't know, obviously it's easier for people to choose sometimes, whether it is or it isn't, to either make it hard for yourself or make it such an easier place.
And it is a choice, but it's also a habit.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people ask me like, oh, how are you so positive? How are you so happy? Like, well, gratitude is a good way to practice happiness. So by looking for the positive in the day, like for example, oh, brilliant, it's Friday. Oh, brilliant, like that coffee was amazing this morning. I had a brilliant night's sleep last night. If you constantly strive to look for what's good in your life, it will naturally attract, and therefore you'll have a more positive mindset. You'll feel more optimistic, and you'll generally feel better in yourself because you're giving your brain those lovely chemicals. Your brain can't distinguish what is good or bad. It just distinguishes what you tell it to do. So if you say, don't look behind you, although the action is saying, look behind you, your brain can't filter the fact that you've put a negative and said don't. So if a lot of my clients go, I don't want to feel stressed. Well, then you're activating the word stress. And like, right, what is stress? What is stressing out? Well, if you weren't stressed, what would you be? You'd be calm. And a lot of the time, so with injuries and stuff, when you're like, oh, I feel injured or I feel tired, well, what is making you tired? Like, if you accept the fact you feel that way and action it accordingly. So for example, like, I feel so overwhelmed. Okay, let's accept the fact we're overwhelmed. What can we do to help? Let's make a list and prioritize. Or, oh my God, I'm so tired. Okay, let's accept that, go to bed earlier. Do you know what I mean? So there's lots of different ways to help understand your brain, but also with the whole, going back to the injury thing, a lot of the time people don't realize that symptoms show up because you're not listening to what your brain's telling you. So your body will physically show you. So if you don't listen mentally, for example, that's why we shiver. So when we go outside, we're too cold. If you don't listen to your body going, it's cold, it's cold, it's cold. Right, okay, Sam, I'm gonna have to physically show you I'm cold. And then it'll start shivering. IBS, a lot of the time, IBS will show up, irritable bowel syndrome, just in case
no one knows.
Yeah, no one knows. I mean, a lot of us have it, but it normally shows up because of stress, and it'll be a build-up. It won't just suddenly come on. It'll be a build-up of things, whether it's family, whether it's work, whether it's personal, and then your body will go, okay, right, I'm really stressed now, like something needs to change, and it will physically show you the symptom. So your body's really good at helping you connect to your mind and body. I think a lot of people, though, miss the fact that a lot of symptoms are due to that actually start mentally.
100%. And this is something that I've learned over this last 9 months from being injured, is that the body just holds the score. Whatever it is, whatever you put out there, it's like a magnet. So your body doesn't attract it, but it does at the same time. So if you're, like you were saying, you feel a certain way, your body's going to show you that in some way, shape or form. And it's about how you deal with that then. And I think as a person, doesn't even have to be as an athlete, listening to your body and listening to the signs is the biggest form of self-love, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
And having that awareness and that knowledge to be able to do that, it is a skill.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, it's genuinely a skill. And with obviously what you do, you are teaching people them skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's really amazing. But then also as well, like, having them skills to notice when you're being caught in the trap of the social media.
Yeah.
Like, how would you help someone with that, or like understand the signs? I think we was literally speaking about this before we started filming, of how easy it is to get caught in that loop.
Yeah, so with social media, it's really interesting because social media essentially creates it causes emotional activation. So that is what then keeps us emotionally engaged. And what social media platforms want to do is keep you constantly emotionally engaged so you don't switch off the platform. And the problem with emotional engagement activation is a lot of the time it's not positive. And, you know, it then can lead us to doing a lot of comparison culture, which, as I say, a lot of the time, comparison is the thief of joy. So we're then comparing ourselves to people who might be younger, might be better dressed, more good looking, more well off. When in reality, you don't know what they go home to each day. You don't know what they're struggling with. You don't know how they feel inside. But because we're being showed a 2D aesthetic of what they're portraying, we then take that as reality. And I think the most interesting thing about social media, and sometimes that we forget, is that we choose what we engage with. And so social media will keep pushing you that same thing, whether it's bad or good. And so not being aware of that is where it becomes quite dangerous. But I think in terms of comparison, it's a hard one because some days are fine and some days are other. Of course, it's good to be motivated and inspired, but it's at what point is it affecting your day to day? At what point are you going like, oh, well, I don't look like that? Obviously, the issue with filters, that portrays an image that isn't realistic in life. So no matter if you're seeing other people, if you then put that same filter and editing on yourself, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed because that's not what you are in real life. And if you're constantly striving to be someone else, well, then who's going to be you? Do you know what I mean? That's one of the things I always tell a lot of my clients. They're like, I want to be like this, I want to be that, I want to be, you know, I wish I was like them. I was like, well, if you're busy trying to do that, like, who's going to be you? There's only you in this world. That is an amazing asset and quality to have. Like, lean into that, like, lean into the qualities that you possess. So yeah, it's social media is a difficult one.
And I think people are scared to be themselves. I've noticed a massive thing now of people having that fear to actually be their true self, because it's that fear of judgment, fear of potential failure, like worrying if they can't actually be themselves. And I think that's really, it's a really sad place to be in.
And the thing is with social media is that the human brain can't quantify how others think about us. So do they like me? Our brain can't quantify it. It's a feeling. We're just like, think so. Whereas what social media does is it quantifies it. It gives a numerical value. So it goes, how liked are they? How followed are they? And then from that's then what affects one's self-esteem, one's value, one's confidence. So by taking it all the way back and removing that quantifying, which our brain has never been exposed to, millions of years before social media existed, we existed as a society. Yet if you ask people in their 20s, kids, students, what is the thing that we struggle with the most? Mental health. Why do you think our mental health is and we're, a lot of experts are saying we're in a mental health epidemic. Why do you think that is? Social media. And yet we still choose to consume it because social media releases the dopamine in our brain. The issue with dopamine is that also gets released with alcohol, gambling, drugs. It is an addiction form, and yet we don't see social media in the same way. If we took for example, a lot of lab experience, if we took a mouse and we saw it in a corner on its own, constantly digging to find a stick, if you see humans the same way, we're constantly scrolling to get our next dopamine hit, you would look at that mouse and be like, that mouse is quite sick. What? That
What's
mouse
up with
is
it?
not well. Why is it socially removing itself? What is it trying to look for when there's no stick there? What is it? You would class that as sick, and yet we don't apply that same discipline or that same narrative to ourselves when the line is, and the issue with social media again is that it's given to people so young. So when we go through puberty, our brain is rapidly rewiring all the time. Our neural pathways were it's almost on overdrive. So our brain's really soft and really susceptible. So this next generation of kids, we see it a lot with Gen Z, which obviously we sit in, that we've got this whole other idea of what our value is, what our worth is. It's based off what we look like. Why? Because we're constantly in this image-driven society where you push out, oh, I'm on holiday, I'm on this, I'm doing that. And then our whole self-worth is then sort of what we look like or how we come across, which isn't how many people actually feel happy doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't look at your social media, for example, and be like, oh, right, well, Ruby's thinking the same way as I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Or look at someone else who's doing, I would perceive well, of being like, oh, well, they're thinking the same what I'm thinking. And I think some social media is getting better, what we were saying, TikTok and things like that. People are being a little bit more real on there, but I think there's such a long way to go with it all.
Yeah.
Because I personally feel that people are scared to be vulnerable and actually show, like we were saying, their true self, of having that reality of themselves of maybe, we've had a bit of a bad day, but this is how I've got over my bad day.
Yeah.
And it's not about being negative all the time, or like I was saying about this podcast, using it as a therapy session, having that negativeness put out there and then just leaving it with people. That's just not how it should be. It should be right, okay, well, this is how I was feeling this day. This is how I got over it. If you want to use that to help you, that's also fine.
And I think the issue is a lot with emotions, there's quite a lot of shame around not being okay. And so it's quite taboo to talk quite openly about one's mental health. Now that is changing because of the landscape of social media, and people are wanting to be really open and really vulnerable and connect with their audience in a different way, and that is brilliant. But the actual conversation around not being okay is still a conversation that is still quite taboo within society. And so a lot of people, this is why the issue with communication amongst one's peers, we're over communicating on social media, but are we communicating how we really feel? Why is there an attachment to not feeling okay as meaning that your self-worth is down? So it's interesting that it kind of plays into it of you saying I'd see them and think that. And it's we perceive an image, but it's not true.
Yeah.
And until you speak to someone, you'll never really know. But yeah, I think social media is a hard one, but the issue with the whole emotions around like being open. I say to my clients, like, emotions are like a rainbow. It's important to feel angry and sad, but happy and excited, because with each of them, you'll feel a balance. You know, if you were constantly happy, would you really be happy? Probably not, because you wouldn't feel the extremities of that emotion, and vice versa, to be sad, to process that and to accept it. And that's what I always say to my clients, like, accept it, that's okay. It's okay to have a shit week. It's okay to be really angry at someone. Accept it, and then let's put it into action. What do we want to do instead? Whether it's in a relationship, about having a conversation, whether it's to do with a career and looking at other opportunities. And that what kind of leads on to the whole career switch about us being in fashion. A lot of people get quite stuck being like, I have to do it, I have to do it. No, you don't have to do anything. Accept what it is and let's go, right, what are we going to do instead? Because like life is short. It's important to do things that make you happy, but also accept that there will be bad days, there will be bad months. Do you know what I mean?
And 100%, like to what we were saying again before we was filming this, it's like I feel like we both went into fashion because we knew we was good at it. It was like, we'll do it as a degree, we'll get into thousands of pounds worth of debt, we'll make a massive career out of this. And it's just not what it's cracked up to be. And it's like we both found out our passion doesn't actually truly lie within fashion, because the values within majority of the fashion industry, not all of them, like we were speaking about certain brands and stuff who our values are like, we could probably get on board with.
Yeah.
But majority of the fashion industry now is very, very toxic. And that's not something that I stand by. I don't think that's anything you stand by.
No.
And how that is all translated now it's not okay, because it obviously, there was obviously something inside us both that was like, this doesn't sit right with me. I want to do the opposite and like rebel against it in a way.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we're both in this career now
I mean, because I went into fashion because I wanted to empower people.
That's
now,
exactly the same reason.
Now, your line of work, you're empowering people. My line of work, we're empowering people, but in a much more, I'd say, personally ethical and sustainable way. When I started fashion, I went into it because, one, I was physically when I was in hospital when I was younger, I couldn't do any sports. I was like, well, what am I going to do all day? Didn't like reading, not a reader.
No, I'm not a reader.
So I was just drawing, and that's why then I was drawing mannequins out of magazines. And because I had my sport stripped from me, I had to think, right, well, I'm not going to be an athlete. You know, my dream was to be an Olympic skier. And I was like, right, okay, that's not going to happen because I don't know how this health is going to play out. Don't know how sick for how long I'm going to be.
Are you still dealing with that now?
Yeah, so pretty much because what I got diagnosed with is autoimmune hepatitis, which is an incurable disease. I'm very fortunate in the sense of I got diagnosed really early, quite quickly. So I was taken to hospital and I was around a lot of specialists. Now, they still can't really work out how I got it, why I got it. And I spent a long time trying to work out, you know, I was eat, sleep, train. Ever since I was a really young kid. Yeah, like I did a lot of dance, I did a lot of cricket, a lot of hockey. Skiing was my passion that I really, really loved. I was just, bread and butter was sport. 7 days a week, we would go, go, go. And I loved it. I loved the team element. I loved the solo sports I did. It taught me so much about discipline, motivation, just like overall, I absolutely thrived in it. Now, to then go from being like the fittest ever, just got awarded a sports scholarship to my next school. And then within the first 2 weeks of this school, just like collapsed and got rushed to hospital. I was then like, well, what is my identity now? Like my identity was sport. I was an athlete. That's what I did. And because my body was physically too sick to do anything, and because I was on quite a high dose of medicine, I was like, well, what am I then? Like, what is my identity? My body, and for a long time, I was like, my body's failed me. And this is what I see with a lot of athletes nowadays when they get injured. They're like, this is so unfair. This is like, what? Well, let's look at taking the lesson from this. And actually, like, you know, they always say like the setbacks, the comeback stronger and all that. And it did change my perception of life and about what I could be and couldn't be. And I was quite young and I was going, you know, being sick through puberty was hard because I wasn't at school. So I missed, you know, all the social interactions. I missed like a lot of important sport events. And that was quite hard to come to terms with, not to feel like I was in catch up. So I can really sympathize with people who do have illness or injury and they have everything removed from them and they've just got to sit and be like, right, so what now?
What do I do now?
Yeah, so which is why I then got into fashion, because I started drawing. That's something I could do because it didn't require my physical body to be able. And that's how I then ended up going into fashion at university, because again, I did miss a lot of academically. I was at a very good school. They were very, very supportive. I dropped quite a few GCSEs and my headmaster was incredibly kind. So I was very fortunate in that sense. And it did teach me a lot, but it taught me optimism. And so like a lot of my friends are like, bloody hell, you have such like an, optimistic mindset, such a sunshine energy. But I'm just like, I wake up each day with health. Like when you haven't had that, and it's the same no matter what level, injury. When you've been injured and then you're back, I don't know, squatting, running, and you're like, oh God, you miss it. You don't realize what you have until it's gone.
You're so grateful for it.
Exactly. And so I'm grateful for each day, like whatever it shows up, whatever the weather's like, whatever my mood, I'm just like, well, I can move, I can be able. So that, yeah, long story short, I know I diverged a bit. That's how I got into fashion, because it was the thing I could do. And then eventually as I got stronger and fitter and healthier, I was able to then take up sport. And that's what I went back into hockey. Now it was, and a bit of skiing at a different level, because again, university culture, which a lot of people understand, isn't eat, train, sleep. It's drink, train, drink, repeat. And I was like, right, okay.
No sleep.
Yeah, so I couldn't, and I found it really hard to get involved with the team because I physically couldn't drink. I had a liver disease, like literally that would have killed me. So I then ended up doing strength conditioning, which is how I got into the gym. I love the gym, and a lot of people go, how do you have the discipline to go to the gym? Like you go all the time.
Ruby lives in the building, like she's in the gym in the morning at like 6 a.m.
It just makes me feel good. I know we joke about like this is like therapy,
but
the gym makes me feel amazing. But also I'm honouring my body. A lot of people choose sport, or like especially working out, as punishing their body. They're like, I've got to go to the gym. It's like, oh, I've got to do this.
No, you don't have to go.
What about
you don't want to go?
Can. Like you can go. You are physically well. Like, oh God, I'm too tired. Don't go. You cannot go. So it's like that sort of simple mindset shift. And like that's why a lot of people go like, oh, I wish I was in shape like you. And I'm like, well, no, I just honour my body. I'm grateful for what it has done for me. I've switched the mentality from why you failed me. All those years I missed out. I can't have a skiing career anymore. Well, actually, you've given me this life. Like you survived.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not, yes, it's not cured my disease, but like it's invisible. That to me is enough of a win that no one will be able to know that I've got liver disease. So then from that, I think that's why I'm always in the gym, because I'm honouring my body.
Yeah. And you know what, like everyone, when I first started the gym, like, and you probably felt it as well, like everyone just took the piss. Like,
yes.
Are you going seeing Jim again today? I'm like, yeah.
Especially as a woman.
I am.
And I don't know whether this is quite a different conversation around.
I feel like it's developed now over the last few years.
Yeah, and I'm really happy it has. And the normalisation, I remember at university, I was like, come on, girls, come on, I'll take you to the gym. Yeah, I was the only
person in my flat when I was living in there who would go to the gym who was a girl.
Yeah, I'd go with all the lads.
The lads they'd go every single morning. I'd be like, me? Yeah. Like, that's me. Mm-hmm. And I think this is also another reason why we get along so much, is because we're not masculine, by the way. We're not like trying to be men, but
alpha females.
We're like a very alpha female kind of mindset of being. We will. If a boy can do it, we can do better.
Yeah,
kind of vibe. We also dress. We actually dress masculine and very similar. Tomboy. But like we just love that kind of approach to things.
Well, I think it's like you're not trying to fit into a box. You're testing
individuality.
The boundaries. Yeah, and you're going like, right, what makes me feel comfortable?
Yeah.
What makes me feel good? And I think a lot of the time with the gym, it does come down to the identity, and I'm sure you will have heard it with some of your female friends or clients, like the weight section. Like the weight section is just a section full of weights. Yeah. It's associated with men. Yeah. And that is, I understand, I respect that. It is intimidating to go into the gym, into an environment where everyone seems to know what they're doing. Everyone seems to be in shape. And it's male-dominated space.
Well, when I was in the gym about lunchtime, when did I go? I think it was Tuesday. It was me and lads.
Yeah,
It was me and lads, and I'm like, girls, come on.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and a lot of girls go, I'm going to do cardio, I'm going to sit on the machines, and I respect that, and I respect that a lot of people have different approaches to different relationships with physical well-being and health, and you're moving your body, that's a win for me, that's a tick. And a lot of my clients, I'm just like, when they're feeling a type of way, I'm like, let's just add some movement into your lifestyle, into your daily routine. If it's a walk, and a lot of the time, I'm sure you'll find with clients, like the mad confidence growth.
Just by doing something.
Yeah, to teach them about, and motivation, like I was saying with the skiing. Yeah, I wasn't like, it's not motivation that gets me down the ski course when the girl before me just broke her leg. It's not motivation that has me standing in a catsuit at minus 10 degrees. It's not motivation of me like getting on the ski lifts at 6 a.m. before they open to do the race. Like, that's not motivation, it's discipline. And the discipline is what will reward you. And anything, if you're disciplined at something, you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything. Yeah. So I really believe that and that's such a divergent from the gym space, but like, the discipline to be able to show up for yourself, and what I say to a lot of my clients and to my friends, honor your body and honor your mind. Yeah. And so if they're able to have a lot of clients who do work out a lot, brilliant for me, because I'm then able to take a lot of the understanding and like how they operate in the gym, I can apply that to their mind. So I always use a lot of fitness analogies, like, your mind needs rest days too. When's the last time you actually just stared out the window and just let your brain relax? Because, as humans, especially nowadays, when's the last time you just queued and just like stared out the window? Like whether you're at the bank, post office?
I did it yesterday morning. I absolutely love doing it.
How calming is it? Because you're just like, not everyone is, we need to constantly have our phones and scroll. And again, that's that addiction of that dopamine release. And dopamine makes us feel good. It's a seeking, it's a excitement, it's something out of our realm. But if we just stopped and stared, and like a lot of clients, I teach them breathing exercises because that is a way of just like mind stilling and just being present. So when I find a lot of clients who do work out, but they do suffer from insomnia, anxiety, body dysmorphia.
Helps so much.
Male or female, by being able to apply that same discipline in the gym to their mind, I'm like, right, okay, so you're strengthening your muscles in the gym, let's strengthen your mental muscles. So let's say you do arms today, right, we're going to do a little 10-minute breathing exercise later, so that your body and your mind has been trained and therefore will be in the fittest way, because that's what well-being is. Well-being isn't just keeping yourself without, you'll know a lot of people who are really in shape and yet chronically insecure. Why? Because their brain isn't in a good state.
I know a lot of people in like the hybrid space as well. And I think the hybrid training kind of model for people now is really, really helping people get into it with like lower barriers to entry. Yeah. Because you can just do a HIIT kind of workout at home and then go out on a run. Yeah. Like you can do things in your own comfort to then be able to progress, rather than just going balls to the wall into the gym straight away, going into the weight section and then feeling really intimidated. But as well, what comes with that, which again goes back to the social media conversation, is the fact that I know people who train hard every single day, post it on social media and then still feel like they're not doing enough. And they've got that mindset of like, we need to do more, we need to push hard more, and it's very toxic. Yeah. Because that is not serving your body in the way that it should be served, because it does need a rest day. Yeah. And that's what really pisses me off currently at the moment, is the fact that there's this conversation, this thing that people are seeing constantly, is that no rest days, train hard, continue to work hard, give 100% every session. But like, people are seeing these reels, right? They don't know whether someone's doing an RP of a 10 or an RP of a 6. Yeah. Like, you need to have them lower intensity sessions to be able to allow your body and your mind to actually have that recovery, because as you'll understand, if you are constantly going hard, you're constantly having that stimulation,
you're releasing cortisol. So that's the thing. So with the gym and with like that sort of high stress environment on your body, you are releasing cortisol. Now, cortisol is good in some instances, in short bursts. Constantly stimulating cortisol in your body, it's not dangerous. Good. It's a stress hormone. It's not good, and it will result in side effects. And like we went back to the beginning, it will show up in side effects. And you'll be like, oh, why is my acne so bad? Why can't I sleep? Why do I have all these muscular issues? It's because you're not honouring your body and letting it rest. Everything is within balance. And if we go back to the bit you said about like that sort of like no rest thing, when I work with a lot of clients who have that sort of, what's the word, that sort of drive and like this sort of constant strive for perfection.
Do you feel like people do it in pain as well? They keep pushing because it's like an escape from pain.
Yeah, a lot of the time people push themselves physically to escape the mental pain.
Yeah.
And it's a coping mechanism. Now, obviously, I do think moving your body is a brilliant way to release emotion and release serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins. Now, those are all lovely chemicals for your brain within reason. Everything is within balance, whatever it is. But the issue with that is that they're not, it's surface level. It's like you're not dealing with the root problem. You're dealing with the surface issue and the instant. Now, that's a quick fix. Do you want to create sustainable results? Yeah. Is this sustainable? No. And so a lot of the time when I do have clients who have that sort of like real drive for perfection, and what I ask them to do is like, where's that coming from? I wonder what the conversation you're having in your head is. And a lot of the time it's a lot of negative self-talk. And where does that negative self-talk come from? The comparison culture of social media. Because they're like, oh, well, I'm not as fit as them. My abs aren't as big as that, great as that. You know, I'm not as quick as them on their Strava.
Yeah.
I'm not this. I'm not competing in the, you know, my high rocks time isn't as quick as theirs. The outfit's not as good as theirs. So it's striving this like culture of comparison, which is then that's stimulating that negative self-talk.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we've had this conversation before as well, where it's like when I first started High Rocks, I thought I had to have washboard abs to be like the best, fastest, strongest athlete. And the reality is that is just not.
And where did that come from? I wonder where you got that.
Social media.
Yeah. So what a lot of the time with clients who do suffer from that, I ask them to get a photo of them when they're maybe 10,
younger,
15, and I ask them to stick it on their bathroom mirror. So morning and evening, they see that picture of themselves. And what happens is, because a lot of the time the self-talk comes in when you catch a reflection. It's that direct reflection of your looks. And, you know, with a lot of clients, they pick apart themselves. So whether they're suffering from self-image issues or self-confidence, it will normally come when they catch that eye reflection. And what happens is then they'll look at themselves and then they'll catch that young you. What would that young you think of you right now? They would think you're so cool. They'd be like, oh my God, as if they're doing that, looking like that, like being that way. That's inspiring, that's cool. And so I always ask my clients, like, do it for that. Do it for younger Ruby. Do it for like younger Leah. She would think you're sick, like honor her and respect her, because then you're not only like honoring your younger self, but you're also thinking about your future self. It's like, how do I want to show up? And so a lot of the time, you know, like if you think, how do I want to show up for baby Ruby? She would be like, oh, well, yeah, it's cool. That's really cool. And so being able to give yourself that self-kindness is I think really important. It's a superpower. It really is.
I genuinely think it is. And I think when you look at younger you with compassion and also understand it's probably the younger you as well speaking to you in that point of that negative self-talk.
Yeah.
But when you look back at it and reflect on it, it's like, no, like you were saying, it's pretty fucking cool what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of shame around talking about yourself positively, which is interesting. Yeah. And it almost goes against this whole, oh, I'm not okay. Well, you know, why is it a bad thing to celebrate yourself?
Feeling good.
Yeah, why is that bad? Because when you feel good, you do better. You treat people better. You are overall a better person when you're feeling good about yourself because you radiate a positive energy. Yeah. You want to be kind. You want to help. You want to support. And what does that indirectly give you? Your immediate circle feels good, but also the wider circle, because you're putting out a really good positive energy. And in return, you'll get nice things back. Or even if you do get, you know, someone cuts in front of you when you're driving, or, you know, someone pushes in front of you in the queue, or whatever it is, or someone gives you a nasty look, it'll be able to just bounce off you because you feel good in yourself. And that's like one of the most powerful things, I think.
Yeah, and I think it is. I think it's very, very powerful to be able to look like that. Like, it's genuinely a superpower. And like you said before, it does take work. It takes time to be able to build that, and to have the knowledge, the skills, to be, it's self-awareness at the end of the day. Yeah. To be so self-aware, to catch yourself in the moments of being like, no, it's all right. like you said, accept it. If we're feeling a certain way, we can accept it. What can we do to help us move through that?
Yeah. And a lot of the time, like, I ask some of my clients, I'm like, let's list 3 things you like about yourself right now. And they're like, I'm like, where's the shame coming from? Why can't you say? A lot of my clients even get stuck on 2. They're like, and then a lot of the time, interesting, they'll jump to what they look like. So like, well, I guess I like my height. I like, and I'm like, okay, let's think about what, as a person.
What do you like?
If you were to lose your sight tomorrow, what about yourself makes you feel good? Because I can guarantee what you look like is surface level. That won't completely fulfill you. What you like about yourself internally and like as a character, that is what will make you smile each day, get up each morning, buzz and feel good and radiate that sort of sunshine energy. And so it's interesting that a lot of people can't, or a lot of people struggle with finding those 3 core values that they like about themselves. And I do sometimes, and those values can change all the time. They can change each day, each week, each year, but just keeping in check those sort of, I guess, affirmations, being like, I am this, I'm kind, I'm funny, and I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
And just keeping those in check and be like, right, what can I do to get today to be kind? What can I do today to make someone laugh? And what can I do today to feel optimistic? And then practicing those, like we said, the self-awareness, the time, that is habit forming. And with habits, the more you do them over time, the more unconscious they'll become. And that'll just be a way of being.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's easier to do with women than it is men? Or what would you say? 'Cause I feel like it's quite an interesting difference.
I guess I haven't particularly noticed
significance.
Well, I think with men, I haven't noticed a significant difference enough to be like an obvious correlation between men and women. I think the difference is that as women, we do like to empower each other. We are a lot more open about speaking about our emotions. We bond a lot off that. The flip side of that which is why women are more affected by social media, because we are driven quite emotionally by things. And so, that culture, if it's not looked after and if you're not aware of what you're interacting with on social media, can lead down quite a toxic sort of tunnel and quite a black hole. Now with men, as much as the experience I've had with men that I've worked with, they do find it just as hard as women. I think it's different though, in the sense of, like you said, like you don't hear that many men going like, oh, that's, gassing each other up. Women, we find it quite easy. And now, again, this is complete generalization, but from my own personal experience, but also with people that I've worked with or some of my friends, we love empowering each other. We want to make each other feel good. Now, do you see that same conversation amongst your lad community,
No.
the boys? I see some of my male friends and my brother and stuff. I don't see that same, oh, that looks amazing, you're in such good shape. You don't really see that conversation as much. So maybe it is harder for them to get in touch with that part of themselves, that form of self-love. And also self-care has been really glamorized and brilliantly since lockdown, it has been glamorized a lot more. And especially in terms of women and their lifestyle, a lot of changes has happened since COVID, which are really beneficial. So I guess in the flip side, there's not enough statistics or in my personal experience to see a real dramatic sort of difference. I think the difference is because I focus more on and obviously interact and surrounded by more people in their 20s, both struggle. Why? Probably because of the social media comparison culture. You're constantly thinking I'm not quite as good looking as them, or I'm not quite as clever as them, or I don't have as many accolades. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And I feel like everything that we said, it is all about building that skill set, building that awareness to be able to catch yourself when you are falling into that, and then having the skills to be able to pull yourself out of that. And for both men and women listening, it is a hard thing to do on your own, which is why obviously getting help from someone like yourself with the mental aspect thing, getting help from people like me who is in this, we can help guide you through that. And I think that is something that people don't people are a bit ashamed of investing in themselves as well, which links back to the social media side of things.
And I think that's the thing. Like, so my mission is to normalize mental health, to make it as aspirational as we do our physical health. So what's interesting is people will spend 300 quid even a month on gym memberships, yet they wouldn't even dream of investing that on a therapist or a coach. Now, why? I don't know yet. We don't yet know why that is. It because of the image culture? I think it's linked
to the worthiness.
Yeah, and maybe it is. And I think what's interesting is, again, if you had a back issue, how quickly would you book in with a physio?
Oh,
same week. If you hadn't slept in 6 months, how long would it still take you to book in with a therapist or a coach? Probably a year, maybe longer. You know, if you were constantly suffering from panic attacks, how long would that take you to book in with someone, to speak to someone? Because they're not just going to go away. And like we spoke at the beginning, it's a symptom of something that's going on neurologically. So it's interesting that our physical symptoms are like, let's treat, but we're not treating the mental symptoms in the same way. Now, because of the conversation around mental health is a lot more open now, and I think our generation is really good about opening up, I'm hoping with time that transition of being able to act on it will become a lot more normalized. And, you know, that's especially why I wanted to go into the space, is just have the open conversation. It's okay to go to therapy. In fact, it's quite cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Because that means you're going to be a happier person. You're going to be a nicer person to be around, but also you're going to be able to support everyone around you in a better way. So I guess it's kind of a bit of both, really.
100%. And like, obviously this podcast is about being unstoppable. Do you think having that mental, I'd say resilience and discipline in a way, is what people make or break someone being unstoppable?
Oh, that's a hard question. I mean, how would you define unstoppable?
So I would define unstoppable in being able to take on any situation, any circumstances, whether that is physical, whether that is mental, and just be completely fearless with it all, but also have that sense of calm to be able to back yourself through it all, and just literally be unstoppable with it.
Yeah. I think, you know, I always say to a lot of people, like, if you don't back yourself, who's going to back you? Like, everyone has different qualities. You know, a football team isn't made up of all one position.
No.
It's made up of lots. And so being able to honour yourself and be able to think, yeah, actually, this is what I'm sick at, and I'm going to hone in on that. But also to practice discipline. Now, you're not born necessarily with discipline. Some people find it easy in other, but to build up habits that you can see have a tangible improvement in your life, I think is what makes you unstoppable. I do think it is, and as cliche as it sounds, it is a mindset thing. And I do find a lot of people who have been through really hard times and struggles do have a stronger mindset because of the discipline or the lessons they've learned or the perspective they've got. When I fell unwell at that age and had everything stripped from me, now that wasn't a choice. You know, I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. However, I do have a different mindset as a result. I do have a stronger sense of being okay and what happiness means to me. And that's something I want to radiate onto lots of people. Everyone has a different journey and a different path, and everyone's idea of happiness is different. It's not a destination, it's a journey, and it's a way of being. So what makes you happy? Rinse and repeat it. What are you wearing? What are you doing? Who are you with? Be aware of the moments that you're feeling your best and rinse and repeat them. And that will then build those habits to continually practicing those, which will then lead you to feeling better about yourself. Because when you're better about yourself, everything feels better.
Unstoppable things happen.
You're unstoppable, exactly.
Literally unstoppable.
So it's a rinse and
happen.
repeat pattern. The awareness is the biggest thing.
I 100% agree. And when you have got that pattern, you've got that discipline, like, you genuinely do, actually you do feel unstoppable, because when you are in that, anyone knows when you're in that flow, when you're in that routine, and it is in a state of flow in a way, that you do truly feel amazing.
Yeah.
So, gonna wrap this up. Thank you so much for being on the podcast,
Thank you for having me.
Let the guys know where they can find you. I'll put in things at the bottom, but like...
coachwithruby.co.uk or at coachwithruby on Instagram. But yeah.
Stunning. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I think a lot of people are gaining a lot of value from that conversation and things actually to take away to actually help themselves. So thank you on behalf of everyone. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, and also as well, drop me a follow at leah.highlifecoaching.